We begin today the Gemara from the Mishnah on Kuf Daled Amud Aleph, the first Mishnah on top of the Yomad. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, Cholza Balayla, if the Chalitza was done at nighttime. Chalitzasa Ksheira, so the Chalitza is kosher. Rabbi Eliezer Paisel. Rabbi Eliezer says at night, Alaza that is. Rabbi Eliezer Paisel, he says at night the Chalitza is not kosher. Bismail, if the Chalitza was done, removing the shoe from the left foot of the Yavam, Psula, it's possible. Rabbi Elazar machsher, and Rabbi Elazar in this case it says that it would be kosher. So the Gemara begins with the machlokes regarding the chalitza done at night. Leime, shall we say, bahaka miflegi, that this is the basis of the machlokes. Mar Savar, so the Tanakama that says that the chalitza, or rather Rabbi Elazar that says that the chalitza is possible, so he holds makshinon rivim lenegam. We compare arguments, and this is money arguments, to the halacha of a nega, that is regarding a rav or a kayin by a nega that is coming to paskin a halacha regarding a nega, or a dayan that's coming to paskin a halacha regarding dinei mominus, money matters where people are arguing. So if we compare the two, so as Rashi brings, b'negayah to negayim, the pasuk puts together kol riv v'chol nega, a money argument or a nega, and by negayim it has to be by day, b'yoyim. So too, regarding money matters, it also has to be by day. Now when it comes to chalitza, chalitza has a relevance for money. As Rashi says, once the chalitza is done, she can come and collect her ksuba. So it affects a right of a money for her to be able to collect. So therefore, if we compare rivim lenegayim, just like negayim has to be by yayim, rivim, and over here, this money matter that comes from chalitza has to be by day. Omar Savar, but the Tanakama says, loy makshinon rivim lenegayim. We don't compare the argument in money matters to negayim. Negayim has to be by day, but money matters could be at night, and therefore the chalitza could also be at night. Says the Gemara, loy, we can't say this is what the argument is. The kula alme loy makshinon rivim lenegayim. Everybody would agree that we do not compare the argument in money matters regarding and the halachas of negayim. The makshinon, because if we were to compare them, then afil gemar din balayla namiloy. So then, even if the din Torah all took place by daytime, but just the gemar din, the psak of the din Torah, would be taking place at night, it should also not be allowed. Like regarding a nega, when the kohen comes to paskin and determine if it's a nega or not. And Rashi says, we know, it says in Masechta Sanhedrin, that when it comes to dinei mominus, money matters, the din Torah has to be by day, but the psak din could be at night. So it must be that we do not compare it to the negayim. So therefore, what's the machlokes here? So definitely everybody holds we don't compare even to negayim. V'hacha b'haka miflegi. But here the argument is as follows: Mar savar chalitze kitchilas din damya. So one opinion over here is that chalitze is like the beginning of a din Torah. So just like the beginning of a din Torah regarding dinei mominus, so that's the halacha that the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, as Rashi brings. Everybody agrees that has to be by day. So over here, chalitza is considered to be the beginning of a din Torah. This opens her up. This is mat to her l'shuk. So it's considered to be just the beginning of a din, and therefore, just like dinei mominus, the din Torah itself has to be by day, so too chalitza has to be by day. So that's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Omar Savar, but the Tanakama holds chalitza kigmar din damya. Chalitza is like finishing off a psak din, which could be at night. Similar chalitza, you're finishing off, you're ending her connection to the yavam, and now she's free, and therefore this is considered to actually be the end, the full gemar of the din, and therefore it could be by night. Sagt the Gemara, Rabbe Barchie Katusva, Avad Uvde, so he, when he did a chalitza, so he did it as follows: B'moik, using a felt shoe, u'biyechidi, and it was alone, without having three people for a bezdin, or maybe two, as we've discussed before, and also balayla. He made the chalitza at night. So Omar Shmuel commented regarding this, Kama Rav Guvre, how strong and how great is this, the power of this individual, the Ovid Ki Yechida, that he's doing, and he's making the chalitza following a single opinion. So as Rashi says, he wasn't saying this as a praise, he was actually saying it in the negative, that why is he following a single opinion? So the Gemara now explains, what is it that was bothering Shmuel about what he did? So my kashya, what's the question here? If the issue is that he's using a felt shoe, but stame, Tanya, we learned a Stam Mishnah before that a felt, or Stam Braisa we had before, that a felt shoe could be used. Laila, if the issue is the fact that he did it at night. So Stam Tanya, we also learned that the Stam Tana of the Mishnah says that it can be done at night. That was the Tanakama of our Mishnah that said that Chalitza is kosher at night. Elo Yechidi Kakashile. His question was, how could he do the mitzvah of Chalitza alone without a bezdin there? Hey Chiyavid bi Yechidi. How could he do it alone? The Yechidai Katani law. Because the opinion that says you can do Chalitza alone is following only one opinion against the majority opinion. Why? Because there's a Mishnah that says, and this is going to be in the following Mishnah that we're going to learn soon, Chalza b'shnayim b'shloisha. The Chalitza was done in the presence of 2 or 3, v'nimtza echad mem karav apostle, and one of those are found to be either a relative or a apostle that can't be used for the bezdin here. Chalitza sapsulo. So the Chalitza is apostle. V'Rab Shimon, v'Rab Yechon, and Asandler machshirim. So they say that it would be kosher. There was an incident with an individual that made the chalitza between him and the Yavam and the Yevamos. Between one another, they made the chalitza. They were both in prison. And this incident came in front of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva said that the chalitza done over there privately without anyone else present is kosher. So we see here that it's only Rabbi Akiva that says that the chalitza could be done b'yichidi privately without any bezdin there. So he's a single opinion. And V'amar Rav Yosef Bamin Yomi, Amar Rav Nachman, Ein halacha ka'isei azuk. We don't paskin like this pair of the 2 Tanoim, Rab Shimon and Rab Yechon and Asandler, that said that it would be kosher even when you had 2 or 3 and one of them is kosher apostle. And certainly not like Rabbi Akiva that said that if you do it alone, it would be kosher. So that was the detail that Shmuel was unhappy with, that he made the chalitza without anyone else present. Or we can say, Kulu nami ichidai katani laho. Even all the other details here, the fact that he used the felt shoe, and also the fact that he did it at night, that's also only following one opinion. The Tanya, as we learned in Abraisa, Omer Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, Anira Isis Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. I saw when Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha did chalitza, shecholatz b'maik, so he was using a felt shoe, b'yichidi alonu b'layla at night. So from this Braisa we see that he was testifying that it's only the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Elisha regarding these 3 details that it can be done in this way. So which means that the Stam Mishnah that we had, or Braisa, that we had about the Maik, or about it being done at night, it was only being said regarding B'di'evet. But here you have one opinion, Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, that says that it can be done l'chatchila with a felt shoe, alone and at night. And that's so Shmuel was unhappy with all 3 details, that it's only one opinion that says that it can be done this way l'chatchila. The Mishnah said, B'smail chalitzasa chulu. So the Tanakama says that if it's on the left foot, the chalitza is possible. My time at the Rabbanon, so what's the reason of Rabbanon's opinion? Amar Ule, so Ule says, Yalfinon regel mimitzaira. We learn out Gzeira Shaveh from the term regel it says here to the term regel it says by mitzaira. Mala alon di yamin, just like there it says that it has to be the right foot. Afkan yamin. So too over here, the yamin, it's the right foot. Rabbi Lazar, lo yalif regel mimitzaira. So Rabbi Lazar, so the Gemara here is actually asking a question. So Rabbi Lazar is the one that argues. Rabbi Lazar says that with using a left foot by chalitza, it's kosher. So the Gemara asks on this, Rabbi Lazar, lo yalif regel mimitzaira. So does that mean that Rabbi Lazar does not learn out this Gzeira Shaveh from regel that it says by chalitza to regel that it says by mitzaira? But Vatanya, in a Braisa we learned, Rabbi Lazar, how do I know when it comes to drill a hole in the ear of an Eved that wants to stay past the 6 years that he usually stays with his master, and he wants to stay on till Yovel, so you have to drill a hole in his ear. So how do I know that it's the right ear? Nemakan oizen. It says here, regarding the Ritziyah done for an Eved, the term ear, oizen. V'nemel alon oizen, and it says by a Mitzaira oizen. Mal alon yamin, just like by the Mitzaira, it's the right ear, when they put the blood on the ear, or the oil on the ear. Avkan yamin. So too by the Eved, the hole is made in the right ear. So I see that Rabbi Lazar accepts this Gzeira Shaveh to compare from what it says by Mitzaira to other places. So too, he should also compare the regel that it says by Mitzaira to the regel that it says by Chalitza. So Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yechanan, Muchlefes Hashita. That means that we have to change the opinions in our Mishnah. Rabbi Lazar is the one that says it would be possible because he learns out from Mitzaira, and the Rabbanan are the ones that don't learn out. Rava says, Lo ilam, lo tepech. We don't have to switch the opinions. There's a difference between these two Gzeira Shavas, learning Eisen from Mitzayre to the Evet, or learning Regel from Mitzayre to Chalitza. Eisen Mufni. The two words Eisen that Rabbi Lazar says clearly that he does learn out, that's because both of these words are extra, so we can learn them out from one another. Regel, however, the two words of Regel, Loi Mufni. Over here, regarding Chalitza, the word Regel is not extra. Even if the word Regel by Mitzayre is extra, but the word Regel by Chalitza is not extra. So what if it's not extra? V'chiloi mufni, if the word is not extra, there's still a Gzeira Shava though. As we had many times in the Gemara before, the rule with the Gzeira Shava, when one of the words are not extra, is that there's a Gzeira Shava as long as there's no perche. If you can't refute this Gzeira Shava as showing a difference between these two cases. So the Gemara inquires, V'chiloi mufni, if both of these words, regel, are not extra, so my perche, what refutation do you have to this Gzeira Shava? The refutation is as follows. Mala Mitzayre, when it comes to Mitzayre, you know why over there was stringent that the Torah says it has to be specifically with the right foot. Shekim ton, eitz erez, ve'eza, v'shnitzelas. Because over there we see that the Torah requires additional things that you use in eitz erez, and then the ezav, and a little thread, a shnitzelas. There are other details that are added there, so therefore we could say that the Torah is more machmir there, but that chumrah does not apply there by chalitza when these details are not used at all. That's the perche. But as the Mefarshim say, according to the other opinion, there is no perche here because those are details, the Eitzeres, the Eza, Vishnit Halas, are details that don't even belong at all in the first place regarding Chalitza. It doesn't come into the picture, B'chlal. So the fact that they're missing by Chalitza and they exist by Mitzayre does not show on a Chumrah of Mitzayre. It's just L'chatchila, not Shayach, B'chlal, to a Chalitza. Mishnah, here the Mishnah begins with some of the details of how Chalitza is done. But the Mishnah first begins talking about, there are three basic parts of Chalitza. There's the actual removing of the shoe, that's the name Chalitza. Then there's the Rikike, when the Yevama spits in front of the Yavam. And then there are certain psukim that the Yevama says and the Yavam says. Three components. So the Mishnah here will discuss if one of them is missing. Chalza ve'rakeka, if she removed the shoe and she spit in front of him. Avaloi kara, she did not read the psukim that have to be read. Chalitza sakshera. So b'diyeved, the chalitza will be kosher. Kara ve'rakaka, if she read the psukim and she spit in front of him. Avaloi chalza, but she did not remove the shoe. Chalitza sapsula. Then the chalitza is pasul. That's the main part of the chalitza which must be done. Chalza v'karav, she removed the shoe and she also read the psukim for him. Avaloi rakaka, but she did not spit in front of him. So here Rabbi Lazar chalitza sapsula. Rabbi Lazar says that that's also a critical part of the chalitza, and without it it's pasul. Rabbi Kiva, however, Rabbi Kiva says chalitza sakshera. Even without spitting, the chalitza is kosher. Amalei, or some take out the word lei. Amar Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Lazar said, what does it say in the pasuk when it talks about what chalitza should be? It says kacha yeyasa. This is how it should be done. So since it says kacha, that means kol davar shehu ma'aseh ma'akiv. Anything that's an action, yeyasa, to be done, is a must, has to be done. So even if saying the psukim, which is not an action, is not going to be ma'akiv if you did not read the psukim, but the removing of the shoe or the spitting, which is an action, has to be done. So Rabbi Kiva said to Rabbi Lazar, Misham Raya, you're proving your opinion from the pasuk where it says Kacha Yaseh. I'll prove from there my opinion. What does it say in the pasuk? Kacha Yaseh leish. This is what should be done to the man, to the Yavam. And therefore what that means, Kol Davar Shehu Maise Beish. Only something which is an action done in the body of the ish, the body of the Yavam, this man, that's something which must be done. So therefore removing the shoe, you're actually removing it from his body. That's a must that has to get done. But spitting in front of him, which is not an action in his body, that's not ma'akiv. So the Mishnah, cheresh shenechlatz, cheresh, a person that's a deaf mute. So the yavam, he's the deaf mute, and the chalitza was done to him. V'chareshes shacholza, or the woman, the yavama, she's a chareshes, a deaf mute, and she did the chalitza. Or v'chaletzes lekatan, chalitza was done for a yavam, which is a cotton. Chalitza sapsula. So the chalitza in these cases is possible. Ketana shacholza, if it's a ketana that did the chalitza, remove the shoe, so tachleitz mishetagdal, she should do the chalitza again when she becomes older, when she's a bas mitzvah, when she's a gedayla. Im loy chalza, and if she does not do the chalitza again, chalitza sa psula, her chalitza will be possible. Chalza b'shnayim, not coming back to the halacha in front of how many people does the chalitza have to be done, which was discussed before, was discussed in the Mishnah in the beginning of the Masechta, and we just quoted this part of the Mishnah before. So if the chalitza is done in front of 2, oy b'shloisha, or in front of 3, v'nimtze echad mem karav apostle, and it turns out one of those are either a relative or pasul to be a dayan here, chalitza sapsula, the chalitza would be pasul. Rab Shimon v'Rab Yechanan HaSandler machshirin. They both say that it would be kosher. There was an incident with one that made a chalitza between him and his Yevamos, and they were both in prison. It came in front of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva said it's kosher, even though nobody else was present. So Rava said, based on our Mishnah, now that our Mishnah is telling us that kriye loy ma'akve, that reading the psukim, if it wasn't done, it doesn't prevent the chalitza of taking effect. So lefichach, so now based on this, ileim ve'ilemes shachalzu, if you have a mute, whether she is mute or he is mute, and the chalitza was done, chalitza san ksheira, the chalitza will be acceptable, be kosher, even though they both can't speak, they can't say the psukim, but we just said that b'diavad, if they did not say the psukim, the chalitza is kosher. So therefore, by ilim and ilemes, the chalitza will be kosher. Now, Tanan, afterwards the Mishnah says, Cheresh shenechlatz, if the Yavam is a Cheresh and the Chalitza was done to him. V'achareshes shachalza, or she, the woman, is a Chereshes, she's a deaf mute and she's doing the Chalitza. V'achiletzes min ha-cotton, or the Chalitza is done from a cotton. Chalitza sapsula, the Chalitza is pasul. So now my time, why by a Cheresh or Chereshes, they have deaf mute, is the Chalitza pasul? Lav isn't the reason, mishum de lav b'nei kriyaninu, because they can't read the psukim. They don't have the ability to say the psukim, and so we see here that this is a critical part of the chalitza, and without this it's possible. So how could you say that a ileim or a ilemes that can't say the psukim, the chalitza would be kosher? Says the Gemara, loy. That's not the reason. Rather, mishum the lav b'nei dayaninu. The reason is because a cheresh and a chereshes are considered to be people that don't have the proper awareness and understanding. They're not a bardas, and therefore, for chalitza, as we learned already before, there'll be a Mishnah later about this. You have to have kavana. He and she both have to have kavana for the chalitza, so they don't have that das. Yihachi, if that's the case, si ileim v'ilemes nami. So Ilem and Ilemes as well, if they're mute, so by them as well, why wouldn't they say that because they're mute, so they don't have the proper understanding and awareness to be able to do a chalitza? In other words, at this point, the Gemara is thinking just like a cheresh and chereshes fall under the category of an individual that doesn't have enough das to do the chalitza. So if so, for a person that's only mute, a Ilem or Ilemes, that should also be the case. So to that Rava said, Ilem v'ilemes b'nei dayaninu. Person that's mute, but he can hear, is a person that has full das, but upamayu dekoivluhu. It's just his mouth is hurting him, meaning that he can't speak, but it doesn't at all affect his awareness and his understanding of what he's doing, so therefore he can do the chalitza. It's his understanding that the Gemara has now for what Rava said. But on this the Gemara asks, however, and by the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai they said that what's the reason why a cheresh and chereshes cannot do chalitza, a deaf mute cannot do chalitza, lefisha einoi ba'amar va'amra. The reason is because they can't fulfill what the pasuk says, that he has to say certain psukim to her, she has to say certain psukim to him. So not like we said before. Before the Gemara explained that it's only because they don't have the das. But Rabbi Yanai said that the reason is because you have to actually say the psukim, and that's why the chalitza of a cheresh and chereshes would be pasul. So how could Rava say that a ilim or ilemes that cannot say the psukim, the chalitza would be kosher? So this is interesting. Taisus here asks the question, so what's taka the source of what Rabbi Yanai said? How does he know that this is the reason for the psul of a cheresh and chereshes? Maybe the reason for the psul is actually what the Gemara said before, that they don't have the das, like usually it says regarding a cheresh and chereshes. So therefore, Taisus says, because usually in a case where there is no das, but if you have a gadol, oimed al gaba, if you have an adult that's standing over you and is showing you and telling you and guiding you exactly what to do, in this case there's a bezdin here that's standing there and showing you what to do, so we can rely on that even if this person himself has no das, the chalitza should take effect. So over here, just saying that there's no das would not be enough of a reason to explain why the chalitza doesn't take effect. And there's another detail that the Mefarshim add to this. You don't need any das for chalitza, similar to what you would need regarding any kinyan, or a get, or a kiddushin. Over there, you're doing a certain action, and you want that action to bring about a certain chalais. It should take effect, a new acquisition, a new kiddushin, a new gedishin. For this, you have to be a bardas. And it wouldn't even help to have a gadol oimid al gab of someone else on top of you. But over here, chalitza does not work that way. If you remove the shoe, automatically the heta comes about. It's not your action that's sort of creating this effect, but just by the removal of the shoe, the heta comes. So therefore, das is not required in that sense. So therefore, Rabbi Yanai said, the only reason the cheresh and chereshes cannot do the chalitza is because they have to be able to speak and say the psukim. So that goes against what Rava said before, that a ilem or a ilemis that can't speak would be good for chalitza. So Ella, the Gemara reverses what Rava said. Ella ki yitmid the Rava aseifa. What Rava said was really said on the Seifa of the Mishnah. Aseifit goes on the Seifa. So it said there, Cheresh chenechlatz v'chareshes shecholza, that if the Cheresh, the Chalitza was done to him, or the Chareshes did the Chalitza, v'achiletz es min ha-katan, or a cotton did the Chalitza was done to him, Chalitza sapsula, the Chalitza is puzzle. So Amar Rava, on this Rava said, Hashter the Omrit, kriye ma'keves, ma'kve, now that you're saying that the Chalitza is puzzle by a Cheresh and Chareshes, which means that the saying of the Psukim is significant, and this holds it back from taking effect. So lefichach, if so, ilim ve'ilemes shecholzu chalitza psula. Regarding a person that's just mute, that the chalitza was done, either he or she are mute, the chalitza would also be possible because they can't say the psukim. Now, masnisin ke Rab Zeira. What it says in our Mishnah will follow Rab Zeira's opinion. The Amar Rab Zeira says. Now, what the Gemara here will explain is the Mishnah said that in a case where you have two people that are able to speak, but they did not say the psukim, so b'diavad the chalitza is kosher. But in the Seif of the Mishnah we see that by a cheresh and chareshes, and Rava adds to that a ilim and ilemes, which they can't speak, and over here the chalitza would be possible. So what's the difference? If you need them to say the psukim, what difference does it make if he has the ability to speak or not? So this is based on what Rab Zeira says. Dama Rab Zeira says the halacha regarding a korban mincha. Kol aroi lebila. If the mincha is brought in such a way that it's possible to mix it, so the halacha by a mincha, the Torah by a mincha uses the term belula, that the flour and the oil should be mixed. So in order for it to be possible to be mixed, as Rashi here brings, the shiur is that the bowl is large enough that if you have 60 isarain in it, it's going to be able to be mixed. But if you add 61, it's too small for it to be mixed. So therefore the halacha is, if you're putting into that bowl flour and oil that is small enough of an amount that it could be mixed, so then the actual mixing is not going to prevent the mincha of being a kosher mincha. Just the fact that it could be mixed is good enough. So again, in the words of Rab Zeira, kol haroy lebila, if it's the measurement is small enough that it could be mixed, ein bila ma'keves by. So then the actual bila of mixing the mincha, it does not hold it back. When the pasuk says belula, it's not ma'akiv. So even though it's a detail in the mitzvah which is not ma'akiv. But if this is something that can't be mixed, there's too much over here in this bowl and it can't be mixed, so then bila ma'keves by. So then the fact that it wasn't mixed will prevent this mincha of being a kosher mincha. So what the point you see over here is that when you have a detail of a mitzvah, where you see in the Torah that detail is not ma'akiv the mitzvah, but it at least has to be something which could be done. But if it can't be done at all, if the mixture here can't be done, then it will be ma'akiv. And similar over here, we have a detail of the mitzvah of chalitza, which is reading the psukim. But it's not ma'akiv, but it does have to be an individual that could say the psukim. Otherwise, it's going to be pasul, and that's why cheresh, chareshes, ilam, ilemes would be pasul. Shalchal el avur de Shmuel, it was sent, halacha was sent to the father of Shmuel, Yevamos sherakaka tachleitz, that a Yevama, once she spit in front of her Yavam, so even though just the spitting itself is not at all the fulfillment of the mitzvah of chalitza, but once she did this, now she cannot do yibum anymore, she cannot get married to her Yavam, and she has to do only chalitza. So what do I understand from here? The ifsil Allah me'achin, that just by spitting, only doing one part of chalitza. Chalitza has three components: the spitting, removing of the shoe, and saying the psukim. So even if the psukim are not ma'akiv, but at least spitting and removing of the shoe. But just the rikike, the spitting alone, will make her puzzle of getting married to any of the brothers, even if it will not be mat to her to get married to anybody else. Mani, according to whose opinion is this? Ilema Rabbi Akiva, is this following Rabbi Akiva's opinion? So what did Rabbi Akiva say in our Mishnah? That if you only remove the shoe and you did not spit, so then Rabbi Akiva says the chalitza would be kosher. So if this would be following Rabbi Akiva's opinion, so that can't be. Hashte or ma b'makim mitzvah, if when you're actually doing the mitzvah of chalitza, to be mater l'shuk. The ikele meimar, so over here, there's a svara to say as follows. Midi dahave ha'emurim. Maybe we should compare the two details that there are here, removing the shoe and spitting, to this that we find by the emurim of a carbon. A carbon also has different components and different things that you have to do. And one of them is those fats and those pieces from the animal that have to be brought and burnt on the mizbeach. That's one part of what has to be done with karbanis. Now, what's the halacha by the emurim? Dichilesnuhu loy ma'akfi. If the emurim are not here, they got lost, they got tomei, it can't be brought on the mizbeach. So then the fact that you didn't burn it on the mizbeach does not hold back the carbon of taking effect. But when it is here, ma'akvi, so then it is ma'akv. You must burn it on. You must burn it on the mizbeach. So over here, we should say the same thing when b'negeya to the components that there is in the mitzvah of chalitza, the spitting and removing the shoe. That if it's a situation that right now there's nobody here to spit anymore, so then maybe it shouldn't be ma'akiv. But if you're doing the mitzvah now and you have both components that could be done, the removing of the shoe and the spitting, it should be ma'akiv. Again, like we find by the carbon, that when you have the emurim to bring them, it is ma'akiv. You must bring them. That's what I would logically say. And nevertheless, what does Rabbi Akiva say? Amar Rabbi Akiva. Still Rabbi Akiva comes and says, Loi ma'akva, that even now, when you have this woman there, and she did the chalitza just by removing the shoe, and she's not spitting, still it doesn't hold up the chalitza of taking effect, and the mitzvah is done. So me'achin ifsila. So if so, most definite. Me'achin ifsila. So you're going to come and say that just by spitting alone, she's going to make herself puzzle from the brothers. If you see b'negei to the mitzvah of chalitza, where you would expect that the spitting should be part of the mitzvah, but still Rabbi Akiva says no, it's not integral to the mitzvah. Without it, it takes effect. For sure, just the spitting alone should not be effective to make her puzzle to the brothers. So therefore it's not Rabbi Akiva's opinion, but rather Rabbi Elazar. We're following here Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Rabbi Elazar says when it comes to the mitzvah of chalitza, there are two parts. You have to remove the shoe, and you also have to spit. So on this, over here, what Rabbi Elazar was saying is that there's two things that chalitza accomplishes. One is to be mater, to get married to anybody else, and for that you have to have both. But there's another thing chalitza does. Once you did chalitza, you can't do yibum anymore. You become puzzled to any of the brothers for yibum, and you can now only do chalitza. So, once the chalitza is done, But over here, the point is that even if you only did one part of the chalitza, which is the spitting, that alone, even if it's not mater l'shuk, it'll make her puzzle to the brothers. That's what it would come out here, according to Rabbi Elazar. But the question is, shnei dvarim hamatirim ninu. We have over here two components that have to be done in order to create this heter that she should be able to get married to whoever she wants. Now, shnei dvarim hamatirim, when it comes to such a situation, and you have two components that are creating this heter for her, or in other cases where two things create a heter, ein mailin zeh b'lo zeh. So they don't work one without the other. So if so over here, why would one without the other have the effect that she should become puzzle to one of the brothers? Just like the heter doesn't work, so to puzzle her to any of the brothers shouldn't take effect either. So that says the Gemara, Ela kerebi. We have to say what it says over here follows Rebbe's opinion, and Rebbe, according to Rebbe, one without the other would have the effect to puzzle her from the brothers. And the Gemara brings again a halacha that Rebbe said regarding karbanis. The Tanya, Rebbe says as follows: Kivsei atzeres. When it comes to the kvasim, the lambs that are brought on the karbanis of Shvuos, so on Shvuos, so you bring these two kvasim together with two breads. So the two kvasim and the two breads are lifted up together, and then you bring the kvasim as a carbon on the mizbeach, and then afterwards the kayanim eat the shtei alechem. So over there, when it comes to these kivsei atzeres, ein mekatshim alechem. So these two lambs that are brought as karbanes, they will not sanctify the bread. And Rashi explains, what level of sanctity are we talking about? What level of kedusha? These breads are all, they come from the money of the machtas hashekel of the Beis HaMikdash. So they have a kedusha in them, but only a kedusha of mammon, of the value of them. But in order that it should have a kedusha of the guf, of the physical breads themselves have the proper kedusha that the halacha of kachim should apply, as Rashi here brings, that the kedusha that then applies is that you're not allowed to take it out of the azara and that it can't become nicer. When does that kedusha on these shtei alechem take effect? Only after the carbon, the two kvasim that's brought with them are done properly. And here, regarding the carbon of the two kvasim, there are two components, as the Gemara here, the Braisa here explains. So, the breads do not have that full kedusha in them until the shchita of the kvasim is done. So, Keitzad, what does this mean? What does this include? Shachtan lishman, if he shechted these two kvasim for their sake, for the carbon shlamim that's being brought, for the tzibur, for the carbon mashvuas, and v'zarek dama lishman, he sprayed the blood on the mizbech also for the right purpose. So then, Kiddush Alechem, that is what sanctifies the breads to become their full Kedusha, the Kedusha Saguf. Now, Shachat Shalai Lishman, but if the Shechita was done not for the right sake, V'zarak Lishman, but the Zrika was done for the right sake, Loi Kiddush Alechem. So this will not be Mekadosh Alechem, because he started off with the Shechita Shalai Lishman. However, if shachtan lishman, if the shchita was done lishma for the sake of the carbon, properly for the shlamim and so on, and then vizarak daman shalei lishman, so then he sprayed the blood not lishma. So over here, kadosh ve'ene kadosh. It'll be sanctified through this, that he did the shchita lishma, but because the second component, which is the zrike, was not done lishma, so it's not going to be kaddish. So what does this mean? It's going to be kaddish, as Rashi says, for the fact that now it's going to be kachim, you can't take it out of the azara, but it's not going to be kaddish that the kayanim still can't eat from the shtei alechem, because the carbon that's brought along with them was not brought properly. So what do we see over here? Divrei Rabbi, this is Rabbi's opinion. So Rabbi over here is basically saying that when you have these two components to be mekadosh, the lechem, and only one was done and not the other, so it'll become partially kaddish. It'll become kaddish for the fact that you can't take it out of the azara, but for the fact that now the kainim can eat from it, that does not take effect. So similar to what Rabbi says here, the Gemara is applying over here regarding chalitza. Chalitza also has a double effect. It makes her, this Yevamos, mutal shuk, and it also makes her puzzle to the brothers. So if half a chalitza was done, only the rikika, the spitting, so then the hetel shuk will not take effect, but you can't say it doesn't take effect at all. Since one component was done, she will become puzzle to her brothers. Similar to what Rabbi says by the carbon here. Rabbi Lazar Shimon argues in this, the breads do not become kadosh until the shchita is done lishman, and the second component is rike v'yizrek dama lishman, and the zrika of the blood is also done lishma. So therefore, according to Rabbi Lazar Shimon, in our case as well, if you don't do both components of the chalitza, the zero effect, not for her heter l'shok, and also not the passeler from the brothers.